Well, television journalism is my path, and it really began in 1964 when I arrived in Britain for a very long OE, and it was the year of a general election being fought out between Harold Wilson, the new technocrat for the Labour Party, and Sir Alec Douglas-Home, the old Conservative. And this was all being fought out on television, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I mean, television here was in the very early stages of development, and there was nothing really comparable. So I thought a career covering politics on television would be ideal, and so I was pretty determined to get into the BBC, and after some time and many rejections, I managed that. So I was lured back to New Zealand by an advertisement for the head of news and current affairs for TVNZ, and this seemed like a very big challenge because we knew that there was going to be a commercial third channel in the offing. And so my task really was to prepare TVNZ news and current affairs for competition, and that needed a bit of work because they had got into the ways of a monopoly and were a little slack, shall we say. There was plenty of room for improvement. He believed in making as much money as possible from as many activities as possible in order effectively to subsidise public broadcasting. That was his way of financing public broadcasting, was to make good profits from various other commercial activities. I got on well with Julian. He was a very fine leader indeed. Well, the model at that time, well, it quickly turned into a state-owned enterprise with deregulation. So that meant we were obliged to act like a commercial business and return a dividend to the Treasury. And that it was manageable in those days. It became much less manageable later on. When I arrived in '87, the pairing was Judy Bailey and Neil Billington, which didn't work at all. There was no chemistry whatsoever between them. So I actually put Richard Long and Judy together, and that lasted as well. I got a certain amount of criticism for introducing American consultants, but they had their uses in terms of helping us to promote and package news. We didn't allow them to interfere in the content, but in terms of how we put it all together, they were quite useful. I also tried to maintain a good range of programs across news and current affairs. So we had a studio interview program, and we had an hour-long current affairs program like assignment. Very important to maintain that kind of range, which has shrunk rather in the years since. I certainly had a hand in hiring Holmes, yes, and in the way that program developed. That was a radical program because it was a personality-driven tea-time current affairs program which we had not had previously, and it had Holmes's stamp all over it. Indeed, the program even being called Holmes, that's quite radical. There was no program named after a presenter up to that point. The dynamic really was to provide a good mix of stories to attract the audience. There'd be a hard story, there'd be the interview of the day at the top, if you like. The topic of the day would need to be covered in some way. We would hope that our little team of reporters would have produced some investigative material, and there might be a lightish item towards the end of the show. But it was all held together by Paul, and Paul would script most of his own links. He was very hard-working, very innovative, very dynamic, a wonderful broadcaster. Well, it was polarizing. A lot of people claimed that they didn't like Holmes for one reason or another, but they sure as hell watched him. So I was quite happy with the program being somewhat controversial and being in the news some of the time. It was certainly the program's intention to push Connor a little bit and create a little bit of drama if that were possible. I don't think you can say that we were determined that he should walk out or not, but that was the way it went, and it's proved to be a very powerful launching pad for the program. The TVNZ, I don't think, has had so much mail on any other program or any other topic. I realised that there was a gap in that nobody had really done a series which examined the changes that had taken place as a consequence of the fourth Labour government, the Douglas reforms and so on and so forth. So I I put forward a pitch for this, got NZ On Air funding, and commissioned Marcia Russell to produce the program with Ian Fraser as the presenter. And it turned out to be a rather successful 4-part series that won an award the following year after broadcast. It was broadcast in 1996. There's always a time for change in one's life, and it was appropriate, I think, that I moved on from TVNZ around that time. And there just happened to be an opportunity here at the broadcasting school. So I tried to turn it into an opportunity to reinvent myself as an academic, and began to do quite a lot of research and write research papers and so forth, and enjoyed the teaching here. And so I've been here for the last 16 years. We try and instill a sense of curiosity and a sense of having a critical mind, so they don't accept just what is there at face value, which we try to develop their critical faculties. That's what education, in my view, is all about. It's not simply absorbing a range of facts and figures and so forth. It's having the ability to cut through it all and to create patterns of understanding, if you like, and that's what we're on about. I think it's rather bleak. It's all very commercial, and it hasn't got a lot of substance. The one program that I'd single out would be Campbell Live, which has really taken over the mantle that Holmes started. And Campbell Live is doing the solid, important, significant stories that should be there in any current affairs outfit. And I'm really pleased that that's there, but he shouldn't be on his own, really. I'm not at all sure that 7 Sharp is going to work out for TVNZ, and Sunday is now reduced to half an hour. Third Degree shaping up, well, we'll have to see where that goes. So it's all a little thin, in my view. Well, I don't think that I started out at TVNZ in '87 with a sort of clear vision of what I wanted to achieve. It was more a question of adapting to the environment. You have to remember, I came out of the BBC, out of 19 years at the BBC, into a completely different, much more commercially driven environment. So I had to adapt, but I still kept that kind of public service mantra. It was still running in the back of my head, if you like. And I hope that that was evident in the way things worked out at TVNZ. Certainly I was reasonably happy with the news and current affairs content by the time I left news in 1994. So it wasn't so much a question of having a rigid ideology or philosophy or anything of that sort. It was more a question of just working away day to day, week to week, to try and get the good stories, to try and improve the quality of the storytelling, to try and put more energy into the presentation and so forth. And I'm reasonably happy with the way things worked out.